here, and it's a new month. So we have a new sponsor, and that sponsor this month is Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge. So thank you to them for sponsoring our live talks for the month of, yep, we're in August. Wow. And if you're interested in winning some prizes, you can easily go to virtualvegfestlive.com and click the contest tab, and you can win a prize pack by uploading a cool photo that highlights our sponsors in some form or manner. You can win a prize pack from Terra Seed, Hodo Foods, Veg Key, Rebel Cheese, Cinnaholic, Fabulous, or Bernie Wild's Adventure Sauce. So thanks to them as well for being sponsors of Virtual Veg Fest Live and Triangle Veg Fest. We love them very much so. So if you are watching this anywhere and you have a YouTube channel or you go onto YouTube ever, please go to YouTube and subscribe and to the Vegan Stew and hit the notification button. And you can also subscribe to Virtual Veg Fest. Hit the notification button so you'll know when we go live, and you can come watch our shows. I'm going live next Tuesday, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, the stew is every Wednesday except for the first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Super excited. Well, usually I am. Super excited. We have a special guest. We have April Lang with us. She's a psychotherapist, lives in New York City. She has written a book called Animal Persuasion, which you can get on Amazon. She'll tell you more about that soon. And our topic is something I wrote that I clearly am not going to remember, but it's the psychological impact of being vegan. Is there one? Have you felt it? Why are we talking about it? Well, that's why we're going to do this. So let's bring in the stew crew. We have April Lang, our special guest. We have Naus from Gotham the Raw, Marla from Vegan Street, Kelly from Climate Healers and the Vegan Abler, and the unbelievable Ellen Jaffe Jones, vegcoach.com. So, Stew Crew, let's start with the news topic first, Marla, and then we'll head into discussion.
Right. Okay. We've got a couple of topics. The first one I thought was, just a really important one to discuss. So the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program is called the NSLP. It says that schools are required to serve dairy with every meal in order to be reimbursed by the USDA for meals served. Now, this goes to about 30 million, more than 30 million children in 100,000 schools. But the fact is that huge percentages of people are lactose intolerant, and a lot of times it is racial. So there's something like up to 80% of Black people are considered lactose intolerant. Latinx, same amount. 95% of Asian people, 80% of Indigenous people. About 75% of Jewish people are thought to be lactose intolerant. So a group of almost 30 organizations. Some are promoting plant-based meals. Others are anti-racism, anti-discrimination organizations have formed a coalition to appeal to the USDA to update the policy and compensate schools for soy milk cartons in the same way they do for dairy. They say it goes against the USDA's anti-discrimination mandates. So they wrote a letter and it's online. You can find more about it, like Veg News. They have a story about it. But anyway, I think it's really great to see this coalition being formed around this. It's been an ongoing issue. Lactose intolerance is uncomfortable. It can affect your learning. It can affect your behavior. It can affect all kinds of things. So, and many people who have it don't even realize they have it necessarily. They're just so used to feeling uncomfortable. So anyway, I thought that was great news. And yes, Ellen, Helene. I'm going to keep doing that.
Close.
I did it once.
It's close. Aren't we all lactose intolerant? Oh my gosh, someone's at my door. That's the dogs. And they're going absolutely ballistic because FedEx is here. Okay, great. Right. I mean, it's like you're saying percentages, 80%, 70%, 65%. Oh, there's another puppy. we're all lactose intolerant. You know why we're all lactose intolerant? I see Kelly too. Because we're not supposed to be drinking dairy from another animal.
It's called lactase persistence, isn't it?
I don't know. That's a great thing. Tell me more.
That's what it's called. We say lactose intolerance, but it's actually lactate. I think I'm saying it right. Lactate persistence. And yes.
Okay. Maybe that's like the new. Sorry.
That's Ruby. Because it said, Marley's saying, "Hey, someone come get Ruby." Thank you, Kelly. I didn't know that there was a difference in what we're calling it, but either way, just a refresher, because I hope if you don't know this, we're the only animal on the planet that drinks another animal's milk. And we're the only animal on the planet that continues to drink milk after we've been weaned from our mom's milk. So if you're not feeling well after you eat dairy ice cream or whole milk or cheese, you kind of get that thing, or your stomach hurts, or some of these like symptoms, you're lactose intolerant. Go vegan, or just do plant-based milks,
Right.
cheeses, all that, yogurts. Really, that'll make a difference. Anyone else have anything to say about that? It annoyed me that there was ever a percentage of not 100%.
I have a feeling Ellen's trying to say something. I'm not sure
This is
though.
my utensil. So
Oh, that's your utensil? Ellen's
I
working
wasn't-
out and
Okay.
communicating.
I'm multitasking.
I don't know if
yeah.
she's.
So former La Leche League leader here, and yes, there's even commercials running on the air now. If you gave your child cow's milk during infancy, there's a class action lawsuit you can jump on. Just Google it; it'll show up. But yeah, mammalian milk is very species specific. So cow's milk makes a ginormous cow very quickly. Also grows tumors very quickly. So if you have estrogen receptive breast cancer, chances are it might have been in part as the result of being stimulated by cow's milk. Mammalian milk, human milk makes our brains grow very large very quickly. So very species specific.
Right.
Does anyone know a Lauren Krieger? Anybody?
No, what?
A Lauren Krieger.
I do not.
All right, so I'm going to ban Lauren Krieger
Okay.
because they keep trying to enter the studio.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
Okay.
I do. I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's
if she might have the wrong link. If Lauren wants to join, she needs to join via Facebook and not the link that you came on, because that's the guest link. That becomes part of the show.
okay.
Yeah, so April's going to fix that.
Okay.
So our next topic, well, April fixes that.
Yeah. So who among us has missed this story? I guess April missed it, but with so the chain restaurant Cracker Barrel. I can't say that without wanting to laugh. The name. It's terrible, but anyway, they are a national chain, and they announced on their social media after being around for decades and decades without having much by way of plant-based foods, from what I understand, they announced to the shock and horror of their frequent diners club that they are going to be offering Impossible meat sausages, the vegan Impossible sausages. They are not taking the meat off the menu. They are not even adding more than that. Yet, there are something like 23,000 comments since they announced this on August 1st, which is like a lot of it just people melting the hell down because they can't believe their beloved guns, God, and glory esque restaurant is now commie, liberal, fascist, I don't know, whatever word, because of one single sausage patty that is going to be offered for some year's granddaughter when she visits her grandfather. So anyway, looking at the responses was pretty funny. because they always call us the snowflakes and they always call us triggered. They can't look at a picture of a plant-based sausage without losing their damn minds. So anyway, I'm just curious what your takes on it were or are.
Well, Kelly's smelling up a storm. So Kelly,
we don't
stupid Americans.
Out here. I remember going to one on a business trip, and I thought this is like the most unhealthy food I've ever eaten. But I mean, I'm not surprised. We see it everywhere. You know, any place that offers plant-based, I usually see these kind of reactions, and you know, it's just another indication that we're winning. They're getting so, like you said, Marla, like so triggered by a picture that, you know. So I always take that as a win. Stuff like that,
Yeah.
I can like let that roll off me very easy because
Right.
it's
fascinating to me how much gets attached to it. You know, that like this picture means liberal, feminist, transgender.
Vegan.
Not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but it's just hysterical to me how people jump from one to the, you know, like just immediately go into that mode. So I thought it was hysterical and totally predictable.
Ellen, I knew
No.
Ellen has been wanting to talk about this
Well,
for the
next
last
thing you
hour.
know, they're coming for your guns.
Well, and that was interesting. It was interesting because the framing was the same. It's like, don't come after my meat and don't come after my guns, you know.
So my ex-husband was a Florida cracker, born and raised, and Cracker Barrel was a part of his upbringing. So when we got married, you know, I moved to Florida, he took me there, and I'm going like, there was one vegetarian plate, It had, you could get up to as many as 5 or 6 vegetables on it. But one time I asked the question before I ate it, what's it cooked in? Lard.
Oh,
and that's what they use for their muffins. I think they have the cornbread, which they've since taken off the menu because it was pretty highly correlated to heart attacks. So, yeah, it's just when something so mainstream as Cracker Barrel is entering the plant-based revolution, you know we have struck a nerve. So,
April?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, kind of what, you know, some others here were saying, people, you know, it's like, okay, there's now a change going to happen. And, you know, how are they going to adapt to the change? Do they want to adapt to the change? You know, yes, it's like, oh, we're coming for your guns. I think Ellen had said that, right? Or we're coming to change the way that you live your life. And people just, oftentimes they don't want to do that. They don't understand what it's about. And they don't want to take the time for myriad reasons to step back and try to understand, like, you know, what does this mean? First off, it doesn't mean anybody's changing you, but how about just stepping back and try to understand a little bit about why the company, why the restaurant is doing this? It's more the visceral reaction that people have, you know, which is general, what happens in so many areas, like the kind of work that I do. It's just like, you have the reaction, and then your brain just says, okay, I'm not going to stop, and I'm not going to take in any other information. I feel what I feel. I'm going to go with my feelings, and all reason goes out the door.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to change over time, but, you know, we're not quite there yet. It's changing in certain ways happening, but we can see that moving into different parts of the country where they're not, you know, New York City, you wouldn't find that as much where I live, but in other parts of the country, it's going to be more prevalent that there's going to be this visceral reaction of, no, wait, stop. Don't change how I live my life. Who are you coming into food?
What's funny is that a lot of them like it. You know, a lot of them are eating this. You know, they don't have if they tried it, they'd be like, oh, that's not bad. You know,
I think
so
I think there's something just very symbolic about Cracker Barrel to their people, rather than like even like reactions at Burger King and KFC were
right, because they didn't get those reactions at all. You know, KFC got the reactions from the vegans. They didn't get the reactions from the omnivores. That's really interesting that, you know, Cracker Barrel is a lot of fun because of the store part and the rocking chairs on the porch. That's what I like about Cracker Barrel. And they sell Razzles. So, you know, it's a candy and it's a gum. So I dated myself.
Mouse. Mouse has been holding up a thing.
Oh no. So you're muted though. So come on in.
Okay. Yeah, we're coming for their diabetes and their cholesterol. Freedom, America. You know, I have never been to a Cracker Barrel. I have had some friends of color go, and they've been horrified by a few things that they have seen, and I refuse to, because they will. Yeah, I think that if there are so many more pressing things for you to get outraged and boycott about.
Right.
I've seen pictures of people who do go there. It would benefit you. And if you shouldn't be scared, we're not taking over anything. It's not that as soon as the vegan meat hits there, all of a sudden you're in San Francisco. This is not how this is working. They're not changing the color scheme, so I think that there is a very, it's almost like that of, I don't know if it would make sense, like toxic masculinity.
Right.
I know what that would be a good idea, because my little ones, okay, like I said, I have two boys who you can hear right now, and I'll mute in a minute. But I paint their nails. I mean, yeah, it's real common in the subculture that I'm a part of, but it also doesn't demasculate you. And unfortunately, I have heard anything and everything, especially with a family member, and I just decided to, in front of them, pull the paint in front of them and start painting my child's nails. Like, what is the correlation that it's something that is completely stripping you of who you are? It has nothing to do with you, nor makes an impact. People who may want to go to Cracker Barrel or go there may be curious, and that's the way to make an impact. Curiosity, and then they'll continue to explore more plant-based options. If you don't want to eat it, fine. Boycotting, you're stupid. Like, it's been a day, Frank.
That's okay. All the vegans are running to go to Cracker Barrel now to eat a couple of Impossible sausages that you could buy in the store for probably for like a quarter of the price. So go.
I just think it speaks to a very fragile sense of self, and identity. That's all.
Well, that's a great segue into our topic, right? Now that's the fragile sense of self of an omnivore, but let's talk about the psychological impacts of being vegan. And we'll start off by April. You're our expert on this panel today, so let everyone know why.
Well, so I am a psychotherapist in private practice in New York City. And a big part of my practice, and has been for many years, is working with ethical vegans and animal activists. And I am an activist myself. I wrote a book called, which I think Helene had put in the chat box or whatever, called Animal Persuasion, a guide for ethical vegans and animal activists in managing life's emotional challenges. And so in the book, I just briefly, talk about things that people can do to deal with living, to help them cope in a world which is non-vegan. And there's a lot of stories in there written by people that are ethical vegans and activists. And, there's veterinarians, and there's people that are trying to raise vegan children, people that are in marriages or relationships where one is vegan, one is not vegan, people that or working in animal rights organizations. So you get a really good flavor of the different kinds of people that are struggling with living in being a vegan in a non-vegan world. And and so there are many issues that come up. And so, I guess we'll talk about some of those, as we go along.
I feel like one of the things that really impacts people who are ethically vegan, because we're going way away from health vegans, right? From whole food, plant-based, from SOS. But the people that do the vigils, bless their hearts, and I don't mean that sarcastically because I am in the South. I mean that, like, I won't do that. That's not my activism. And what I mean by the vigils is the people who go and watch the trucks that are carrying the cows, the chickens, the pigs
Right.
to the slaughterhouses. And they give the pigs, also pigs more common, they give them water, they give them some touch before their impending death. And these pigs are 6 months old, right? So they do this over the course of hours, and they do it multiple times, and it takes a heart, a soul that is it's difficult, right, April? I mean, that's probably a big piece of vegans who have like need to go and talk this through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've certainly had and have clients that will do the vigils. I know myself. I had done a Kapuros, went to in New York City, a Kapuros protest, and I had never done one of those before. And it's the same idea of going there and giving water and watermelon to the chickens. And the people, a lot of them do it every year, and they find a way to do it and be okay. I mean, they don't be okay with it, not really okay with it, but the way that they deal with it is I'm doing something really wonderful. But I know when I came out of that and I came home, I was just devastated myself. It does take a certain kind of person to be able to do it, and to because to do the vigils, because you're seeing, you're aware of the horror of the whole industry, and then you're looking into the eyes of these beings. So it's one-on-one that you're connecting, right? You're seeing you're seeing the beauty of them, and you're realizing like, I can't save you, right? And that takes, for a lot of people, that takes a toll. I mean, in order to do that kind of work, you really have to be able to say, I can't save you, but what I am doing is I'm finding a way to make your end, a little bit better, to show you at the end of life that you have been cared about and you have been loved, because you have to be able to reframe it, because if you can't, it's very likely that you're going to suffer deeply from the experience.
Before we go to Kelly, can you tell people what Kaporos is?
Oh, sure. So in the Jewish religion, but basically in the more with the not even Orthodox, more like Hasidim, and there's different sects. The super uber Orthodox. What they do in order on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is that they will take a chicken and they will lift the chicken over their head and like 3 times say a prayer, and then slaughter the chicken. The purpose is that they're transferring their sins, because it's a Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, to the chicken, and then they slaughter the chicken, so the sins are basically dispersed. However, I do want to emphasize, it's really important that every group of Hasidim or Lubavitcher, whatever, don't do this. A lot will also use coins, and that a lot of the rabbis, have tried to put forth the importance of switching over to coins, because in the Jewish religion, it's not about being, not trying to do harm to animals, but this particular group just kind of lives in a different world, and they have not listened to reason. So the activists will go and try to, the chickens are basically, and this happens in different places, but in Brooklyn a lot, they're shipped in from the slaughterhouses, and they'll stay on the streets of New York City in these cages, one packed on top of another. And then activists go there and try to just, whichever ones they can reach, try to give them a bit of water.
And save some of them. There are definitely Kaporos chickens at the sanctuaries around the South.
Many
Yeah.
they do. Most don't. If they are not slaughtered, they just don't survive, because they've been living for days oftentimes in heat, without not getting the water or the food, on top of each other, dead ones on top of them. It's really awful.
Just like a factory farm.
Just
Kelly.
like
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick point about the vigils, because I haven't gone to any vigils regularly during COVID. I was a regular attendee of the vigils, and we try to get non-vegans there because first off, I believe that if you're going to eat these animals, the conditions that these animals come in, the stress they're under, so that you're not ignorant, like if you still want to continue to eat meat, okay, but don't be ignorant, right? Because we know so many people don't want to see this, people don't want to know, right? And I feel you owe that obligation to that animal and to yourself to see this. But for us, it's also like, because we have asked all our family members to attend, and we've had like half of them attend, because we want them to see, like, through our vegan eyes, why we're so passionate about what we do, right? And hope that strikes a chord or plants a seed or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, it's very hard, but I think it's necessary. I think everyone should bear witness once in their life, right?
I agree. Yeah. I agree.
Just to go backwards a little bit, Kevin Sanders was watching on Nashville, and they said, appreciate the option that Cracker Barrel has. Let me just put it on the screen. Appreciate the option that Cracker Barrel has given me by offering Impossible Sausage. It doesn't take away from the menu, just offer more options for me. Couldn't agree more. Just want to make sure. Oh gosh, someone else is at my door. So we know about the, Marla, sorry, I forgot about that. Marla.
I was just going to mention, April, I think a lot of times in these different scenarios, whether you're bearing witness, as people do in New York in these, situations, or people are dressed up or doing the anonymous outreach, anonymous for animals outreach, or just your standard, protest at a circus or a rodeo. A lot of times they're very fraught in terms of, like, not only are you aware of the animal's suffering, but there's so much confrontation and so many verbal attacks from the people who want the tradition to continue, that I think, personally, like, I was much more someone who attended those things in my early days, but I feel like for me, it was a recipe for becoming very cynical and burning out, on the other kind of activism I do. And so, like, it's important for me, if I want to continue being who I feel is a productive activist and advocate for the animals, that I don't feel pressured to go to every activist event, that I have checked in. Do you recommend that with your clients?
About not go to every activist event?
Not really that, but just like checking in with themselves to see how much battery power they have, for dealing with, you know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, I've spoken on compassion fatigue a lot and written about it, and it's a big deal. And, I will absolutely, advise clients to limit when they're starting to feel very overwhelmed, because everybody has you're filled to a point, and then it starts to go down. And then, are you depleted or nearing depletion? And when you're feeling nearing depletion, it's time to stop and maybe, switch to a different kind of advocacy. And the other piece of it too is, some people are just constitutionally are better equipped to deal with a certain kind of advocacy, like people that work at, people that go to the vigils, people that are undercover investigators at, slaughterhouses and factory farms. I could never do that kind of advocacy. So I always encourage my clients, some of them who might say, well, I should do that kind of advocacy, or I should be doing this. I'm like, well, does it feel right for you? If not, think about the way there's so many ways to help animals. Maybe find, if it doesn't feel like the fit is right, or it would be overwhelming, find a way that will be. Because if you keep pushing, there's no way that you're not going to come to a place that you're going to be depleted. And then you can't help the animals. You're hurting yourself. So it's basically a lose-lose situation. So it's a really good question, Marla.
Yeah. So before we get to Kelly, also as vegans, we shouldn't pressure other vegans to do. Oh, Kelly and I are the same wavelength. We shouldn't pressure other vegans to do the activism that is good for you,
Right.
right? Because I know my boundaries. I know what I'm good at. I know what I don't want to put myself through. I know where my energy levels are. I know to refill my cup.
Right.
All of you need to do that too, vegan or not. You need to do that. And we should not be imposing our views, our meat eating or vegan views onto somebody else. Oh, I got a clap from Steven. Ah. So that's cool. Kelly, do you want to add on to that?
I was just going to say that, Helene, because I experience it here. My partner goes to events, not as much, but he's contributed with Unchained TV. So, he has to do some. And it's always like, where's Kelly? Where's Kelly? Right? I don't talk about my mental health with a lot of people. But same thing, like I feel this immense guilt. And like, even when and it's really unfortunate because I'll see people that like I consider very dear to me that I've met through these events, but because I'm not there, like I feel like I have less value. Like they just, I'm just like the person who, abandoned. Like I feel like that. Like I've just abandoned the activist community, and somehow like I don't know, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like they almost like they've forgotten me, or I have less value, right? And that really upsets me, right? Because because if I see somebody not show up for, whatever, like when I was doing it, I would never, I would understand that, but maybe that's just because I am sensitive and, because I know the pressure, like from activists, it's about numbers, the more numbers you have, the more solidarity. And I completely understand that. But like you said, Elaine, it comes at a great cost to your mental health. And yeah, I absolutely burnt out, and my mental health greatly suffered for it. So yes, please, vegans, when people aren't showing up, like trust that they're doing it for their own best interest, not because they're abandoning you, not because they don't like you or whatever. It's they're checking their mental health and going like, can I do this today? Am I going to be able to get through this unscathed, or not completely beat up, and they decide they can or not.
Right. Marla, then Nafs.
I think Nouse was before me. I could go after Nouse.
Oh, okay.
So.
I won't be long. I can't do, Kelly, you brought up mental health, which is key. I think that the vegans that are able to do the vigils, some of them too have like a background history in like forensics. They have the mindset for something like that to be able to take it. For someone who may not be as comfortable, it's PTSD. I mean, let's not sugarcoat anything. It's traumatic to watch.
It is.
I could never. And I salute those that can, because it's needed. And just like you said, activism is not just that. There are other ways that we can do that, because while you can't get mad, it's almost like there's a holier than thou sometimes. It comes from vegans who get mad at those other vegans who don't do this, and how, you're not truly a vegan. I'm sorry, were you giving out the cards? Don't hold.
I never got one.
I'm missing mine. I think that they need to understand, and that's why intersectionality is crucial. Right. It's missing. And if you're going to attack your fellow vegan, instead of saying, okay, I completely understand that this might not be for you, however, here's how you can help with this. There's another faction. We're hitting a brick wall,
Right.
and that really is that thing, which is like the holier than thou. It was a big thing psychologically that I've noticed, that some vegans, as soon as they go, and then it's like, I know more than you. And I'm like, it back up. You hurt the cause, you hurt other vegans by playing on them, on their emotions like that. And then Kelly, you said like sometimes it's really hard for you. I have anxiety. I don't like, being in social groups. I'm an introverted extrovert. People have to be, you don't have to literally like to be where, oh, I'm going to understand or baby, but just common, just understanding will help. You know, so if this person can't do it, don't shun them. Don't make them feel like they're beneath you. You're not helping anybody, the animal or your fellow vegan. You're hurting the community as a whole. You know?
Yeah, empathy goes not just towards the animals. April, do you want to jump in there for a second before Marla?
Oh, no, let Mara go first. I'll go after Mara. Go ahead, Mara.
Okay.
Okay, I was just going to mention now there's something called I think ambivert. That's what we are. Friendly introverts.
That would be me too.
Yeah, exactly.
And me too.
I think we're all probably that, right? I was going to mention a lot of what you guys are bringing up is something I have also observed. It's just probably human nature, kind of like hierarchical, sorting people into these things. And I have observed myself that the people who are more conflict oriented, more confrontational, it sounds a little more judgmental than I mean, but like the people who don't necessarily shy away from conflict and stuff like that, they are more upheld as the right kind of activists, you know, and getting the back pats on social media for the stuff that could get them arrested. Or conversely, saying that the only valid form of activism is to leaflet. I've heard many people say that kind of thing, you know, or like, I don't want to be one of those crazy activists who's out there with a sign, you know. There's just so many ways that we all diminish one another, and it's all just so completely unnecessary. And, you know, if you want to cut down on the number of vegans and the number of people who are active, that's the way to do it, is just make people ashamed, to make people feel like they don't belong, to make people feel inauthentic. I think there's a lack of imagination, a failure of the imagination, if you think that the only or the best way to advocate for the animals is these like select little things. Like, this is just an example. It's going to sound like I'm like building myself up, and I don't mean to. But I know, like, if you create recipes, and I think that this is a sexist thing too, even though obviously men create recipes as well, they refer to us as cupcake vegans. You know, if you share free recipes with the world, it's diminished in that way. The Vegan Street, the website I run with my husband, we've reached 35 million people in the last 3 weeks. Some of that is just like regular ass, you know, funny cat memes, and some of it's harder stuff. But so you can't tell me that me standing with a sign, or me handing out leaflets, or me taking undercover videotape or whatever is more valid or more effective. I think we should not be standing on the sidelines and taking notes on everyone else's efficacy. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ellen, do you want to go before April?
I've been raising my hand for a while, so I'm getting more visual.
Ellen,
Ellen, go ahead.
I just write it off as working out, you know.
I know we're not 100% sure, as you could be working out. Okay, April, Ellen wants you to go.
Yeah, so just briefly, you know, we all have different temperaments. We all have different proclivities, different interests, and there is room for everybody in the movement, and that needs to be, it really needs to be recognized by more people, that, you know, anything and everything that people do is wonderful. And it's, you know, but then again, the people that are going to tend to put somebody down, it's usually going to be, they are that way in their life in other ways also, you know. So why would it be any different here? So, you know, the people that are feeling really vulnerable and feeling put down and marginalized by their fellow vegans, really important then for those people to find a kind of a niche, a good support system with other vegans to kind of pull together to be able to say, no. You're doing great work. I'm doing this, you're doing that, this person's doing that. It's all wonderful, because those are the people they need to be around. not the people that are chastising them, excuse me, and minimizing their accomplishments.
So are we really going to be in agreement that the vegan white supremacists should have any place? No, sorry. And also I was thinking that we need a vegan sorting hat. We can create that, right? To go with the cards, right? No. People who go vegan need those recipes. There you go. Dominique, thank you. Marla appreciates that because she creates some great recipes.
I'm a cupcake vegan.
And that's okay. With really good vegan frosting. Ellen, please share what you need to share.
Yeah, just I think everybody has said we have different temperaments. I remember when I first decided to go into broadcasting 101, our class, the first week was about exposing us to the kinds of things we would be seeing as reporters. So, floating bodies, death, destruction, murder, rape, because you had to have a certain kind of inner strength, or almost you have to compartmentalize, to go and cover it objectively as a reporter. And I always thought this for the greater good. I mean, I had reporters in my family, and they were always about, not the salary because you don't make anything, but fighting on the front line, fighting the Ku Klux Klan. There was that. So, it was easy to kind of, for me, transfer that passion for truth, justice, and getting it out there. So, but not everybody can do that. And at some point, there's post-traumatic stress and war zones, and reporters, they just can't do it anymore. And they curl up. I've known a friend of mine who came back from Beirut, just curled up in a fetal position for 3 weeks until he could talk to his wife again. So, though there are those really intense, sometimes we don't even know how it's affecting us. April, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit, because you are our special guest, how many, if you have a number like this, of your clients, or is there a number of people who have lost either marriages and or relationships because their partner didn't come along with them? And if somebody's listening out there, some words of advice on how you deal with that.
Sure. I can't give you, I can't give you numbers, because there might be people that after they stop seeing me, that they split or they got back together. I think that in order for the relationship to work, and some of them just really don't, but both people have to be able to, well, first off, the person who is the vegan has to really say to themselves, can I exist in a relationship with a non-vegan? And some will say, no, they just can't. And others will say, I love my partner so much, and perhaps I wasn't vegan when I got together with my partner, but I want to stay. So then compromise comes into play, right? And the work begins. How do you compromise? What are you compromising? And sometimes people try it and it really doesn't work out. But I like to think that, first off, before you get into a relationship with a non-vegan, be honest with yourself about, do you believe that that's going to be okay? Or do you know in your gut that's not, you're not going to be able to be okay with that, because you don't want to invalidate the other person. You don't want to put the other person down. Ideally, you'd like to educate the person, expose them to a new way of being, living, a more compassionate way of being. So you got to think about that before you enter the relationship. But if you're in the relationship already, you got to be mindful that so let's say you became vegan and you didn't get, you were with your partner who wasn't. Your partner's now has to change their life in some way, going out to certain restaurants, hang out with certain friends. Maybe you no longer want to have leather in the house. There are going to be things that, you are going to want, but your partner may say, whoa, the way that I've been living is just now is changing, and I don't know that. So you need to be patient and compassionate about that and see, again, how that can work out. And your partner may actually say, look, it's too much. I don't want to make these changes. And I did have a client some years back that was the case and left the relationship because it wasn't sustainable. That the changes were too much for that person. That happened. Yeah.
Ellen lost power. So as great as that question was. Most of it. So, Ellen, can you hear us now?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. We
I
just can't see you. Your video's
What I'm
off.
seeing is goth raw on my end.
Yes, you have to put your video back on.
I think
So,
it's on.
but we'll keep going.
Now-
Oh, you don't want to do that though, because that makes you just you. You don't want to touch those buttons. But okay.
Okay, here we go. All right.
There's Ellen. Ellen lost power. Ellen's back. Yeah, the joy of storms in Florida. Lose power all the time.
So did that answer your question, or do you have another specific, or do you need a little more on that?
What I heard about half of it, I think. So yeah, I'm not going to ask you to repeat it, but generally, yeah.
It's it can be very, very difficult. Depends on the two people and how committed they are to trying to find a way to make it work. And if one party or the other, their views are very entrenched, like I can't be in a relationship with a non-vegan, or I can't be in a relationship with a vegan, then there's just nowhere to go with that. So it's very specific to each. Yeah.
No, that makes
recommend
total sense. I'm sorry, Ellen.
Clients that they do choose a vegan partner if they haven't.
Do I say again? Would I recommend that they do?
Yeah.
I would never recommend that or not, because there's so many people that I've met that say they're perfectly fine if they meet somebody that they're in love with. Because, you can meet somebody, who's vegan, and doesn't mean because they're vegan, you're going to get along with them. And that could be friendship, that can be romantically. So sometimes people just happen to meet a person who's not vegan, and there's so much positive there that they have to build on, that they find a way, maybe it's compartmentalized, or I use the word compromise. But then, people have to say, if somebody says to me, I really would find it very, very difficult to be with a non-vegan, then I would maybe gently nudge them a bit to say, okay, then maybe don't put yourself in that situation with somebody who's not, and see what you can find. But with love, right? And then we don't know where it's going to come. And sometimes it's when it arrives, we say, okay, I've got it, and I'm going to try to work with what I've got. So
well, tons of relationships. I know tons of people that are married or in long-term relationships with someone who was not vegan. One went vegan, or one came into it vegan, and the other person was not. And they ended up both being vegan as time went on, because the compatibility of getting along with each other trumped the vegan side. And that compatibility leads to being understanding and acceptable of what you're doing within that relationship, what each of you is doing, the respect and the caring towards one another. Obviously, if you care about someone who's vegan and you're not bringing home a steak and throwing it on the table and like marinating it and cooking it in the house and being obnoxious and saying all those stupid things that non-vegans say to vegans, day in and day out in your relationship. Because that doesn't work for friendship, and it won't work for a marital or partner type relationship. Now, so it's really hard to see that you want to talk. But there we go.
It is, yeah.
Let me see. But being a vegan is so hard out in the real world, that I can't imagine being in a non-safe space at home too. I could not be with a non-vegan for that reason. Well, Dominique, that's a good point, except that you can have a household that is a safe space and be with someone who's not vegan. They can be understanding enough to eat vegan at home, and when they can make that choice when they're outside of the house to eat animals.
Yes, that happens.
House.
This is a very interesting question. And Ellen, I'm kind of glad that you brought it up. And April, I'm so glad that you're here to kind of address this, because this is kind of going from this is my personal experience. I was in a relationship with someone who was vegetarian. They were curious. I didn't shun them, anything like that. When I became vegan and my parents would cook, the smell of like steak and like my dad, it made me nauseous, and I couldn't take it anymore. But when we got together, he was curious. There was no forcing. there's always, I think, that curiosity. And so there was a notice in health that was like things were getting better for that person. And so they embraced it. Upon the ending of the relationship, immediate switch. They went and purchased cheese. I mean, like box things. And the reason why I was just flabbergasted is, like most little kids, pizza is like the world to them. So when you go and buy like a Kroger cheese pizza, my little ones are like, oh, and then I'm like, no, we don't eat that kind. While you stand there and eat it in front of them. I don't know. This is such a weird way that played, because it's like, are you doing this to be spiteful?
Right.
Was it a facade? I mean, if you, fine, but you know fully well that I myself am vegan and that we have vegan children. To just immediately cut it and bring it into the house. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to go outside and eat it somewhere else, that's you. You are your own person. But you don't bring it into the dwelling where there are things that the kids know there's vegan cheese and there's cheese. They just see cheese. They just see chips. They just see, food. Kids just see food. But if you present it there and that you know fully well that that's not for them, it's irresponsible.
It's intentional.
Yeah, it's intentional. It's 100% intentional. And I've worked with couples like that where somebody will say, I'm being plant-based, not necessarily vegan, for you. You matter to me, and I will do this for you. So if the relationship is going to end, then they didn't really want to be that way anyway. They were doing it as a favor. They're not an ethical vegan, so it's very likely they would go back and do what they, and eat, their old ways. And yeah, to bring it into the house after there was, an understanding that you don't do that, there's definitely a getting back, especially if, and I'm not asking you this, but if one, let's say you were the person who initiated the ending, then it's very much, it certainly would sound like that would be somebody who's saying like, I'm going to get back at you for this. I want to hurt you.
I've seen that scenario happen often where the relationship broke up, and typically the guy, not the woman, the guy leaves and stops being vegan, and then goes even dickier and starts feeding the kids. Because they have the kid, they'll be like, "Oh, here's some Cheetos. Oh, here's this and here's that." And the kids that were raised well enough at that, depending on their age, some of them will go, "That's not vegan," but some of them are like, "Hey, John," some of them are like, they don't know because they're trusting that parent to feed them what their diet is. And then there's the confusion for the kids. And maybe they, when they're with dad, they're not vegan. And when they're with mom, they are. Oh, it's for the health of the child. The kid should be vegan. Just flat out put that out there. I don't feel like there's any debate with that, but there is, because there's so many kids that aren't. But for the health of that child, cancer, diabetes, strokes, heart disease, all those things that we grow inside our bodies when we feed our kids animals, that's all you're creating in that little body for their Cracker Barrel future. Marla?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, it seems like when couples, especially couples that are no longer together, when they try to compromise, the compromise always sacrifices the vegan thing. It always seems like the compromise means that non-vegan food is consumed. So that's been my experience of observing it. I was going to mention another kind of relationship is friendship. There are friends who we've known forever who we might go vegan and we have these people who are grandfathered into our lives, or extended family and that sort of thing, who take it very personally, that you no longer go to the same places together, you don't have the same rituals and traditions and that sort of thing. That was part of why we created the Vegan Family Network, is so that the kids could have vegan cake, they could have all these things, and it was just different. But my question, April, is about the idea of friendship. I think it's really hard to create friends as an adult. It seems like. And just because someone's vegan, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have anything else in common, or that, you are compatible as friends. How do you recommend finding vegan friends as broad as, do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what are some avenues or paths to finding other, vegan community, for example?
Right. I mean, I think part of it too is where you're living. I mean, a lot of times people who, not all vegans, not all ethical vegans are activists. So there's that piece of it. But if you are, then there's more of a chance that if you go to some different events that you're going to meet other people, because you're right, just because you're vegan doesn't mean you're going to get along, and you can have some great friends that are not vegans. So, if you are into going to activist events, that's one thing. Meetups or great in certain communities. I know New York City has some meetups, and if there isn't one in your community, then I would absolutely encourage somebody to start one. We can all start a meetup, because it's ideally you're in order to meet other vegans, you're going to have to get involved in activities where there are other vegans, right? Because you know that they are. You're not. I mean, how else are you going to know? So you have to find out. I mean, go on social media. I mean, even if you hate Facebook, I mean, Facebook is good for certain things, right? You can find different groups and reach out to people that way. So that's really, to me, that's really the best way to do it. Barring, putting an ad in some newspaper and saying, looking for vegan friends, right? I mean, who's going to really?
That's really dating you and adding a newspaper. We just don't do that. So community is so important. Dominique, thank you so much for joining us for our mental health. When you care so much about what animals go through and people laugh at your distress. So yes, it is very important to find people who think the same. I'm going to kind of add on to what April said and say, just because we're vegan doesn't mean that we all have to be friends. I feel like that's really, really important, is that especially in a community where not everybody gets along. I used to try and bring and keep everyone together in the community. I gave up on that. There's just some really dicky people. And there are people who have done some very mean things. Some people have said my name or done things to me or about me behind my back or to me or publicly that have been absolutely downright nasty. Why does it happen? Because I put myself out there. I get that. However, I don't need to be friends with you. I don't even need to associate with you. I don't care that you're in my community. If you're going to be like that, you be like that. It's not going to be in my world. And that's incredibly important, that you have your boundaries, and doing things that you love to do tends to find people who you are compatible with. So find things that you love to do. And if they're vegan centered, you will find people like going to the Charlotte Veg Fest, meeting Ellen Jaffe Jones, clicking with her immediately. And it's been years of a relationship from that point forward. It's just one. And I've met speakers where in 15 seconds, I was like, they'll never come to my event ever. So it's not like I'm like every person I meet, I'm like, oh no. Some people, it's like dogs. Not all dogs like each other. So why do all humans have to like each other?
Cats.
I don't know. I think it's our Kelly first. Right.
Good point.
Kelly. I was gonna quickly say like the opposite, because my partner and I are both vegan, and we've gone to events and met vegan couples, and like really wanted to be friends with them, and they couldn't give us the time of day, and that was really heartbreaking because we're a really cool couple, you know.
We'd be friends with you.
It was really, you know, because like you were saying, Marla, it's hard to make friends as an adult and older. Like I'm 47, right? You know, and I'm an introvert. You know, it's very, very difficult. So you kind of figure like, yeah, you know, a vegan will get it. Like, but even that, yeah, that's been a real eye opener for me. It's like thinking, yeah, vegan couples will totally want to be friends with
Right.
Mommy, give me.
So Ellen, go ahead. Then April announce.
Real quickly, just underscoring going on social media to find your interests. I run a vegan runners group. It's a group, not a page. So, you know, people find races in their cities, and they really can find just different ways of connecting. Another thing I've started doing, because I felt that kind of insecurity in certain circles about, well, I'm not enough of an animal activist going out there with my signs, which I have done. But I just came up with the hashtag running is my activism. Because when I go to these mainstream races,
Right.
you know, I get all kinds of pushback and, you know, vegans can't race, can't run. And, you know, I just have become on this mission to show that you can. But I also feel like when I think about using that hashtag, that puts, you know, people who are searching for that connection, they might, you know, stumble upon it.
No, that's brilliant. Yours is running, mine is producing vegan festivals. Marla is Vegan Street, Kelly is Climate Healers and the Vegan Abler, Naus is Goth and the Raw, and April just heals us. It's perfect. Now, so do you have something to say?
You know what? It's very clear I'm different than all of you, but aesthetically, but you didn't look at my appearance first. You got to know who I was. And that means a lot. And unfortunately, a lot of these vegan groups who claim to be, let's come together, and then they either see you or they fit, well, you don't fit the mold. So it's like, what is your what? So they alienate you or make you feel bad. And sometimes you just have to create a group for yourself with other like-minded people. And like you said, yeah, Marla, you will know this too. We can be goth, we can be vegan, but let one person like say, well, I'm anti, you can get the hell out. There's no person, and we will make sure we call you out. There's no clique. Great, you have the best aesthetic, but you're ignorant. I don't care if you're vegan or not. There was I did Goss in the Raw because we're not all cookie cutter. And I've did it saying, what would I like to see as a person, what on the other side? So just being the creative, and there are not a lot of people who are familiar with like the fact that not only are darker fruits and vegetables really, really beautiful to look at, but sometimes their skin is way more important in terms of antioxidants and things like that. Their rainbow is more is vast beyond just the yellows and reds and, you know, what you see commercially. That's why I love farmers markets. But then even like festivals, there are so many within our community that are vegan, or they respect they're vegetarian, they're trying to go, or they may be plant-based. But there was no festivals that I saw that I could really feel okay to go to because maybe the music wasn't my style, you know, something like that. And there's a lot of alienation still within this community. And that's why I started Vothfest, because it's like, let's bring not only people who are in different colors, different races, but you are vegan, and the thing that brings you together besides being vegan is also your love of the music. But it is quite, you know, clear in our mission statement. I am a, you know, queer person of color. I run the show, and if you are anti, don't come, because I know where your heart lies. You can't, no, it defeats the purpose. So sometimes we've created alt parent vegan groups, you know, where all of us like spooky parents can get together, because sometimes know there are a lot of like new moms and things like that that will go to the other groups, but they're just met with this, well, you don't look like us, before answering a question. So sometimes it feels better to like find company that you feel that you can fit in with, because once we are like, okay, we're here for each other, we're gonna help, we're on the same wavelength, and we'll do anything we can to support each other. So it can be very difficult. Vegan couples, Kelly, yeah, I will hang out with you in a heartbeat. Yeah, as Jinx Monsoon says, water off a duck's back. They missed out on an incredible person. So they don't matter. You got friends. You got a lot. Watch. But I think it can be trying. It can be trying with couples. It can be trying with friends. It can be trying being the only vegan in the family.
Yes.
With vegan children.
Yeah.
Grandparents, man.
Only vegan in my family. So also Dominique also said there should be support groups for vegans and also mentoring for new vegans. And there are new vegan mentoring groups. It depends on what city you're in. They're definitely online, so they are out there. And it's just a matter of, again, doing that research and finding it. And if it's not in your community, creating it, because that's a great thing to have. And if you're not that person, because we don't want to force you to do something that you're not comfortable with, there's somebody in the community that would feel comfortable doing it, most likely. It's just a matter of putting the feelers out into like the Facebook world and seeing what comes back from that. And that's where most cities have a Raleigh vegan, a Richmond vegan, a Charlotte vegan, a Toronto vegan. If you just do a search of your city name and vegan with it, unless you're in like a really, really small town, the closest major city probably has one. So that is definitely a piece that, Dominique, you have. But then you can just watch us. We'll be here for you every week. That's why we do this, so we can help you with all our topics, because we've got a bunch of them. April, do you have any final words to share with us?
Final words, April. No pressure.
Final words. I just to kind of, pick up on what, Lena, you were saying, everybody was really saying that, just because you're vegan doesn't mean that you're going to have something in common with another person that's vegan. And that's okay, right? It's just like finding friends in vegan's one piece of who a person is. And oftentimes I know it's like the biggest piece of it, but there's other aspects of who we are. So, maybe you go out and you get involved in some other activity and you're going to find that the person happens to be vegan, or that person happens to have a sister or a brother or a cousin who's vegan, right? So sometimes that's another way of just going about it also, is just find the activities that you love, not necessarily vegan activities, and see who's there, because more and more people are becoming vegan, right? So that's something just to keep in mind. But the final thing I'll say is, and this is just kind of from my perspective, is that if you're feeling down, if you're feeling depressed, if you feel like you have compassion fatigue, if you don't feel you have enough support, search out support groups. They're online. They're different communities will have support groups. If you need to see a therapist, there are plenty of vegan therapists out there. Not as many as we wish there'd be, but there's definitely more than there had been. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. There are people out there that want to support you, and take advantage of it. Take advantage of what is out there, because, just the fact that you became an ethical vegan is a really wonderful thing. And don't allow yourself to be, pushed down by anybody's either non-vegan or vegan's negativity and toxicity. That's my final.
That's great. Thank you. And now it's going to trump that.
Thank you so much.
Can you share your website? Is the easiest way for someone to reach you?
Wait, Marlon, Now's just talking.
I really love the fact that you did your insight, and that your closing was pretty much saying there's no stigma to seeking help. There's still a stigma around mental health, and therapists are amazing. I absolutely love mine. And just like you said, you can find those that are vegan. You can find those that are LGBTQ, those that, will work with you and understand. And I just happened to get lucky, and he is LGBTQ himself. And it's like, I feel so safe. And sometimes that's so rare. And then TikTok, there is a goth psychologist. And I said, why are you not here? Her whole office was just stunning. And she was the sweetest. And so many people commented, even if they weren't part of that aesthetic, they were like, I feel like I would feel comfortable with you. There's something that connects with people. So, I mean, thank you for clearing that, it's not a stigma to seek help, and that you can definitely find there. You're more apt to find it now. And I'm finding TikTok is like, they're coming out like psychologists and therapists, to give advice, and you will look at them when they're not in their suits or professionally dressed, and half of them are tatted or what, there's something that links, and that's the start. So there's a therapist out there for everybody.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah, find that person. If the first person you go to when you're seeking counseling doesn't work for you,
Right.
you don't need to force it to make that work. You need to meet with somebody who works for what you're going on. And that doesn't mean they didn't tell you what you wanted to hear. That's not what's not working for you. That's you not listening. What you need is to have somebody that you feel comfortable enough to speak with and open up to. Otherwise, the process won't work for you.
So true.
Yep. So that's incredibly important. Dominique, thank you for joining us as well. April, tell people how to get in touch with you.
So yes, you can. My website is aprillang.com. It's just my name. And you can contact me that way. There's a link there for email, for phone number. It's probably the easiest thing. Just aprillang.com.
Okay, brilliant. I get that part of this. There we go. So aprillang.com to reach out to April, because you can take clients anywhere, and that happened with COVID. So it made it even more prevalent. So that's cool. And thank you for changing your appointment for tonight so you can join us. So
Happy to have done it. Important to do.
okay, so I'm going to close this out. So thank you, Naus. Thank you, Marla. Thank you, April. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Ellen. And thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for April for joining us. And I don't know what our topic is next week. I have no idea. It'll be some topic that I'll post about in about 20 minutes. So you get to see, just like we will when I go and look at our spreadsheet. But really important, one thing that we didn't touch on is if you are feeling suicidal, so depressed that you don't want to live anymore. What's the number? Is it 813, 811? What's the number? Kelly's going to write it. There's a new 3-digit code, 3-digit number that you can call to touch a suicide hotline. And I think Kelly is putting that in the comments right now. So excuse me. Call that number, get the help that you need, reach out. Nothing is ever so bad that you don't want to keep on breathing, even though you feel that that's the case. I'm telling you it's not, and things can get better. Just need to get help. So outside of that, make sure you do take care of yourself. Make sure you do things every single day for yourself. You are worth it. You are important. You matter. Just do that mantra over and over and over. 988 is the code that you can dial to get to a suicide hotline. Brand new in the United States. That's an amazing thing. Makes it really easy to go and find one. I've been on the other side of that line receiving the calls. So you definitely, the help is there. Don't ever think that you're alone. We will see you next week. Remember to subscribe to both and hit the notification button so that you know when we go live. And we'll see you. Be kind. Remember that. Take care of yourselves. Avoid COVID, all those nifty things. Enter the Wish Pond. Thank you to Piedmont Farm and Refuge for sponsoring this month and all our other sponsors. And of course, follow and like and subscribe to all the things that we do too, because we greatly appreciate it. Have a great night.